Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Always great to have Melissa Kim on the show, of course, from Bleacher Report, the digital host, and also on 105.7 The Fan, getting ready for tonight's game. And Melissa, like you and like the Ravens, not a lot of time off in between last week's game. I guess the good news for the Ravens is it was non-competitive in the second half of their game last week against the Denver Broncos, but I know that they're not going to feel great about that regardless, because no matter what, we know when they play the Bengals, anything goes.
When they play a divisional game, anything goes, right? We saw that in the loss to the Browns just a couple of weeks ago, because these two teams, all four of these teams in the division, they know each other very, very well, and who's playing whose Achilles heel and all that too. So yeah, these division games, they know what it means. They mean just a little bit more, obviously, when it comes to the playoff, because that's already a conversation around here, right? What are the playoffs going to look like for the AFC North, as well as the Ravens themselves? So yeah, I mean, last game against Cincinnati, it came down to the wire, had to play in overtime with the whopping number of points for both of these teams. So I really think that this one is going to come down to how the defenses play, right? Whose defense is going to be able to show up in a short week, especially in a primetime game in Baltimore under the lights. It's going to be a big one.
Yeah, 52.5 is the total tonight on FanDuel. So they're expecting a lot of points scored between these two teams. And, that's been the case all season long. I mean, Baltimore usually shows up on offense. Bengals usually show up on offense, but not on defense. And that's been their season this year. That's why. By the way, Lamar Jackson's been great. Right now, 61% completion percentage. He's been fantastic with 20 total touchdowns. We probably could say the same thing with the exception of one play for Joe Burrow against the Raiders last week. Just like a crazy pass he threw to the Raiders. The guy ran it all the way back for the touchdown. Beyond that, he's been great too. Head-to-head matchup, the Ravens lead 6-4. So they say that it's not a quarterback league, and it's not just the quarterbacks. I got to tell you, Melissa, I don't agree. I think that that's the focus tonight.
No, in this game, absolutely. And the thing with Joe Burrow is that because their record, he hasn't gotten as much as attention, right? But he's having a phenomenal season, as you saw those numbers. I mean, just absurd, right? He's been throwing the ball probably the best since he's been in the league, right? I would argue for that. But quarterbacks heavy, yes, for sure. But then this offense, it's very strange to be saying, having covered this team for years, to say that the Baltimore offense is the highlight of this team, right? This is a franchise historically based in the defense when you think back to the days of Terrell Suggs and Ed Reed and Ray Lewis. So to say that you've got Lamar Jackson throwing to a number of weapons that, they're just endless, right? This offense has described itself as a pick your poison offense. Rashad Bateman, the wide receiver, mentioned that a couple weeks ago, and the offense has kind of embraced that and been calling that, because you look at, obviously, the guys he throws to. Zay Flowers coming off of a game last week where he caught for more than 100 yards. Mark Andrews is back. He is indeed back. And then you have guys who are a little bit more reliable, obviously, have been in the past, like Nelson Aguilar. And then you have guys like Isaiah Likely, who will not play, by the way, tonight. But then you have other guys emerging as well. Charlie Kohler, the third-year tight end, who hasn't gotten a whole lot of looks, but he's certainly someone that they keep on the field a lot because he's such a big body, can block. And I haven't even gotten to the ground game, right, as we look at Derrick Henry here, where he had scored his career 100th touchdown last week against the Broncos. And then on top of that, he scored a touchdown in every single game that he has played in a Ravens uniform. So his numbers are just absurd there. And I think he's on pace to a 2K season. Let's call it what it is right now. We're halfway through the season. He's already over 1,000 yards for the season.
Yeah, I thought he was a Hall of Famer before he joined the Ravens, but he just stamped his ticket to Canton, I thought, with the season that he's having now. I got to be honest, I am stunned. I mean, you think about the league, there's supposed to be, Melissa, smart general managers out there winning Super Bowls. Nobody wanted Derrick Henry, really, except the Baltimore Ravens. And to me, I don't know who to blame here, if it's the 30 teams that didn't want him or the one that did, basically. So that's kind of the case here. And Lamar Jackson right now, Melissa, is favored to win the MVP of the NFL, tied with Josh Allen. They're both 3-1. Mahomes 4.5-1. Goff has to be in the conversation because he's been so good. Daniel's probably going to win the Rookie of the Year, maybe MVP. We'll see. Feels like a 4-player race at this point. There are some people that feel it's a 2-player race, Melissa, because Mahomes, outside of last week, really hasn't had a Mahomes-type season.
I would agree with that. And look, obviously, I'm going to champion for Lamar Jackson because he's a quarterback that I cover. They're calling it the MV3 year, right? That's what the guys around the locker room have been calling it for Lamar. I mean, I think he's running the ball obviously phenomenally well. We know that what he can do on the ground, but his arm this, right? I think he's really proven this year that he can be a true dual threat quarterback. And I remember 3 seasons ago, but when we were going into training camp, he had mentioned how hard in particular that he had worked in terms of the pass game. And he was bringing wide receivers down to Florida with him, where he's from, where he trains in the offseason, to really build that chemistry with him, because that's how badly this guy wants it, right? This is how badly he wants to be able to be great and to be the best. And he comes off of games like last week, or, some of the phenomenal games that he's had. And you ask him, how do you think he played? And he always says, we've got a lot of things to work on. We can get better. And Derrick Henry is the same way. So I really think that these two together have really brought some major chemistry to this team, but also set the standard, right, of what they think that they're capable of and what they can accomplish. And you really see all the guys on the offense, especially those wide receivers, really buying into it this season.
Melissa, let's end with the trade deadline. The Ravens yesterday or the day before got Tre'Davious White, so certainly that was a nice addition to their defensive back crew, and they needed somebody there. Diontae Johnson, I'm curious your thoughts on him, because I thought the Ravens were good in that spot, having Zay Flowers and having Rashad Bateman and having Mark Andrews. Is it the likely injury the reason why they got Diontae Johnson? Is this a depth move? It's not that he's a bad player at all. I'm not saying that. It's just I thought they were good with what they had.
I think especially with likely, obviously, the injury, I think that's a good point. But also on top of that, you think about down the stretch, right? Guys that they're going to need hopefully in the playoffs. And he's someone who has a lot of experience, obviously one of the few guys in the league who can say that they've played on the Steelers and the Ravens. And also he's a special teams guy too. That's kind of where he's going to, I think, earn some of his money on the Ravens. He talked to us a lot about that when he first got here, that he has definitely gotten some reps on special teams where they do unfortunately need some help as well. But I will tell you, in terms of the defense, this fan base was dying for someone on the edge, right, to rush the passer. That they wanted an edge guy, and so we heard a lot about that this week. But I mean, they're going to go with the guys that they have. They have some great guys there, some veteran guys too, and Kyle Van Noy. So we shall see how that journey goes for this defense as the season goes on.
Yeah, the defense has struggled. One of the worst in the NFL against the pass, much better against the run this season. Now, Melissa, of course, is covering the Ravens, so she's not going to come on this show and pick Pittsburgh or Cincinnati to win the division. But let's look at the odds anyway, okay? Just for posterity.
I will be an honest person here, yes.
No, you're not. We know. It's okay. Pittsburgh the Ravens are heavy favorites to win the division. They're the best team in the division. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that they're not. But, Melissa, I've seen Pittsburgh play Baltimore a zillion times. And I can tell you right now, the spread's going to be 3 wherever the game is played.
Yes.
And usually you take the points wherever the game is played too, because it goes right down to the wire and the Tucker's kicking a field goal and winning, or not attempting a field goal and losing. To me, that's where the division's going to be decided, when these two teams play each other again.
Oh my gosh. And I put a lot of stake in Mike Tomlin, right? For as long as he's coached in the league and never had a losing season, he's doing something right over there for sure. So I agree with you on that. It's going to come down to these two teams, as it has so many times in the past. So that week 11 matchup, they play next week. So I am very much looking forward to that first matchup, to just kind of for it to be like a litmus test of where these two teams stand right now. Because I have concerns, obviously, about the Baltimore defense, also have concerns about the Steelers offense. So I think it's going to be a really fun, interesting ground and pound matchup that we always see between these two teams.
All right. Well, Melissa, enjoy the game tonight.
Thank you.
I don't know, but I'm guessing with the game being played tonight, maybe you get a break this weekend. Maybe you do from the NFL.
Fingers
just
crossed.
Sit back and watch.
We shall see.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks,
Melissa, for coming on.